Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and you're watching our special coverage on Air India's historic order for aircraft, a deal that has shaken up the aviation world and promises to transform the way Indian aviation is perceived and how the Indian traveler, you and me, travel within India and overseas. And joining me to discuss that and the implications of this deal is Mark Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Consulting. Welcome to the show, Mark. Let me begin by asking you to tell our viewers why this order is such a big deal.
Thank you, Business Today, for having me, and good to be here. I think the important thing to understand is that India, from our commercial airline fleet perspective, after Jet Airways collapsed and prior to that, Kingfisher, our fleet is already in a negative by roughly about 300 aircraft. And despite Indigo's growth in terms of fleet, we really haven't been able to replenish the lost fleet from our capacity. Air India's deal for Airbus with Airbus and Boeing not only replenishes our fleet, but also brings in a whole new level of product freshness with our airline service offering. And from a strategic perspective, this becomes a very tactical step where Air India would be going head to head and competing with most Gulf carriers, including Emirates, Etihad, and Qatar Airways, because now Air India has that unique Swiss knife capability of flying ultra long range with a very good product offering.
By when do you expect these aircraft to be inducted into the Air India fleet?
Air India should be very lucky to get the first few aircraft by July this year. We're looking at a 6 months delivery, at least for the A350 and maybe a few Airbus A320 or 321 Neos. In terms of optimal capacity deployment, the current fleet of Air India is roughly about 140 odd aircraft. So the current fleet plus the new inducted fleet, which should come in or rather start trickling in by June, July, August, we're expecting this to continue till about at least 18 months from now. So by 2024, June, July, August, we should see Air India with a good 350 aircraft in terms of commercial deployment, which includes its existing fleet. So I think eventual full saturation of the 470 aircraft plus whatever that's remaining, the 787s, we should see that by around 2026, 2027.
One of the things that a lot of people are asking, what does it really do to airfares, at least if not in the immediate context, but in the medium term once these aircraft are in, because we've been experiencing high airfares, especially in the domestic context.
So with Air India, the key focus is going to be looking at an international network and focusing more in terms of its global position, getting back to where it was as an iconic airline and being amongst the top 5 airlines in the world. So while the Airbus A350 would be deployed aggressively internationally on ultra long haul destinations and routes, we must be also mindful that Air India has bilaterals with practically every country, including exotic destinations as the French Polynesian Islands, Tahiti, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, and several others. So Air India will want to deploy its long-range aircraft. The new inducted or the fleet that they intend to get as part of the new order promises about 28 to 30% of lower operating costs. This means lower fuel burn, lower carbon emissions, higher reliability, much more simplified, lower maintenance tasks, and a very high level of airworthiness. So the ability to fly more, fly longer, and fly further. So all of these, when added up, should bring down airfares, and the Airbus A320 and the 321 LR fleet, which Air India expects to deploy locally within our region. When I say our region, I mean the region that extends from possibly Mauritius, Maldives, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Singapore. that entire footprint with the new aircraft that's being inducted should bring down fares to a reasonable balance. But I must caution and caveat what I said, because cost of jet fuel in the market has increased, and the only counter to that is the hope of jet fuel being far less speculative, and of course, provided that the rupee doesn't dramatically slide on the dollar.
Is it possible to put a number on the money that Air India, the Tatas will be spending on this massive expansion?
The order in terms of a ticket number, in terms of a ticket size, is roughly about $110 billion. But the bigger challenge I see is for Tatas to upgrade, migrate, and structure their airline to handling such a complex fleet. The A350 is a generation 5 plus aircraft, and to bring in such advanced technology into India would need an entire shake up and overall of the way Air India has been functioning so far. That includes setting in people, skills, processes, technology, IT, innovation, software systems, integrated data management, bringing in every element of technology to migrate and make Tata formidable and right aligned to handle the new fleet. The estimated investment I see, because usually most projects for Tata and most investments for Tata have a very long-term horizon window of at least 30 years, as we have seen with the turnaround of Tata Steel to where it is today, Telco to where we have Tata Motors. We're expecting Tata's investing close to at least about 150 to 200 billion dollars in Air India, which is an optimal figure. It's not something which is over the top. It's, I'd probably say, from a conservative perspective.
And the number that you gave us, are you taking into account the likelihood of discounts that are typically available on such deals?
Usually the discounts that come in are mostly negotiated deals. We have to be very mindful as well that at the moment there is a surplus of Boeing and Airbus aircraft in the market. So these deals that the Tata would have got, when I say 110 billion, I'm also including the maintenance support, spares, whatever that comes as proprietary tooling, the whole package that would be from a typical airframer, which is not just the aircraft. So in that you'd have spare APUs, spare engines, spare parts that would last you for at least 5 years, part and rotor bolt support agreements, technical assistance, and so on. The bigger challenge I see in all of this for Airbus and Boeing is the offset investment of that 100 or 110 billion, because Airbus and Boeing will have to offset some amount of investment into India to sustain and keep these contracts alive. So far, there hasn't been any major significant investments made as part of offset obligations from Airbus and Boeing on the civilian side, and that's something which the government will aggressively pursue and look at.
We also saw that this deal saw the involvement of the governments of India, France, and the United States. Prime Minister Modi was there. And why do you think they all got involved? Because Air India is now a 100% subsidiary of the Tata Group.
I think the everybody getting out of the party and celebrating Air India deal is, in my opinion, trying to tag along in the success of what Air India is trying to do and attach and affix your name to it. For the French government, because let's be honest, India does not manufacture aircraft parts, nor does it manufacture anything that is significantly a component or a structure of an aircraft. And by that I mean a commercial aircraft. The British government, and to some extent, and to a major extent, the French government and the German and the German authorities would benefit the most because Airbus is predominantly manufactured by France and Germany. So this would continue and ensure the production lines of Airbus continues beyond 2026, 2027, up to 2030. And to some minor extent, components which are made in the UK would be fed into French and German production lines. I'd probably say that everybody wants to just step in and claim a little success for their own selves. But the biggest winner in this is the Indian traveler and the Indian consumer, because now he gets a product that is world class, or at least up to a world standard, a far more reliable aircraft. And India, through Air India and the Tatas, get an efficient air transport network system working.
Mark, what can customers expect when it comes to creature comforts? Air India in the past has got some bad press on account of some of its uh, services, old planes, and we must also mention the fact that this is a order, the biggest one, but it comes after 16, 17 years of no orders. So, what can people expect in terms of creature comforts?
Travelers flying on Air India and the 350 would be delightfully surprised and enthused with an aircraft which is ridiculously quiet, a cabin which has much lower cabin altitude, which means the pressurization is very good. You arrive less tired, less fatigued, more refreshed. You'll have all the creature comforts from a wonderful and a gorgeous in-flight entertainment system, comfortable seats, which would take care of your back and your lumbar, so with lumbar support, onboard Wi-Fi, internet, the ability to communicate, talk, video conference anywhere in the world, um, comfortably appointed cabin with appropriate lighting technologies, including LED and mood lighting. We will also see onboard showers. Air India is also expected to have onboard bars and cafes, and sort of a lounge, like in the same manner they had back in the 70s, which Air India actually started the whole revolution in the world with. Um, Much better, larger, more comfortable lavatories and washroom, um, larger, wider, and more efficient galleys, so that passengers can have at least a proper 2 or 3 meal service. In addition to a whole host of others, including faster gate turns, improved reliability, very, very low delays, and the whole ability to truly enjoy air travel the way it's meant to be.
One of the other issues is the Indian aviation sector, and obviously, a deal of this size and the number of planes that are going to be inducted, it will have a big impact on India's aviation sector. What's your own assessment?
The total number of aircraft, at least commercial airline aircraft, is in India is between 800 and 900. India has been adding aircraft on wet lease, which one really cannot count as our own homegrown fleet because they don't belong to our country. This figure is significantly less given our population of 1.4 billion, at least, and plus the global diaspora, which is at least 500 million. I'd probably peg the effective number of aircraft that India should have, ideally, has to be between 3,500 to 5,000 aircraft. China, for being its stature and where it is today, has a fleet size of 4,500 aircraft. So India is clearly lagging behind. And from our current numbers, we have to grow rapidly year on year to meet up and match and cater to the demand that is India and the global Indian diaspora's travel need.
That also brings me to the point about the market leader, Indigo, in terms of what its response will be. Can we sort of expect a fair war, a battle for the customer in India's skies?
From a competition perspective, I think there's enough for everybody to to go along with everybody and everyone to offer a service and product offering that the consumer wants. Eventually, the consumer wins because now the Indian traveler has choices and has very good choices. What we will see is dependence on Gulf carriers reducing and that coming more towards Indian operators. So it's enough business for everybody. Everybody gains and everybody grows their market share. Indigo is has optimally grown and it's highly saturated in the Indian market. So now I do foresee an order from Indigo in terms of setting up of a level up tier, which will be a global operation. So it's very likely that Indigo now will also start going international because they can't really go any more domestic. They've already gone and connected with and pretty much structured their network to every single destination within India, and they control that market quite effectively. But Indigo has had major challenges with going international, so now that becomes a key focus for Indigo, and we do hope in times to come that Indigo should be looking at global expansion.
All right, Mark, thanks very much for your time with us today. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation as we decode the significance of Air India's historic order for Boeing and Airbus aircraft. If you've been, thank you very much for watching.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.